I'm at Ivinghoe Beacon, an ancient hill fort in Buckinghamshire, at the very western edge of the Chiltern Hills escarpment. To my left, you can see what's left of the ramparts. These are constructed by digging a ditch and throwing the soil up to create these earthwork ramparts. Admittedly, from this angle, they aren't much to look at, and you might wonder why it is that so much time and effort was expended in creating a hill fort at this site. As we approach the entrance to the hill fort, the answer becomes a bit clearer. And this panoramic scene behind me is exactly why it was built here. Visibility over the entire Vale of Aylesbury. In fact, although it's a bit hazy today, on a clear day you could see right the way across the Vale, across the Thames River, to Whitnham Clumps, Castle Hill, a contemporary Bronze Age hill fort. The views aren't the only reason to build here. There are 5 Bronze Age barrows dotted around the interior and exterior of the enclosure, and that would have formed some sort of focus for the people who constructed here. Most of the hill forts we've looked at, we've talked about as being from the Iron Age, but this site is the earliest in the Chilterns. And how do we know this is a late Bronze Age site? Well, there were excavations done in the 1960s by Shepherd Freer and Molly Cotton. They dug for 2 years in several locations around the hill fort, and most of the evidence, the pottery and the metalwork, all suggest a late Bronze Age start for the settlement. Nearly 40 years later, the chance find of a complete Bronze Age sword near the northern ramparts corroborated this dating. And in fact, you can see that sword in the Aylesbury Museum. That sword dates to about 1100 to 1050 BC, which is around the time we think that the hill fort was constructed. But people were doing things up on this spur of land for a lot longer. As you approached the entrance to the hill fort, you would have to pass this, a Bronze Age barrow that predated the hill fort. I'm standing in the external ditch to the burial mound, which is little more than a small dent in the earth now. In the LiDAR, you can see a dot in the very center of the circular feature, and that is probably where an individual was buried sometime between 2400 BC and 1800 BC. This probably would have been a very ancient monument by the time the hill fort is constructed, and it just goes to show the depth of time that people are related to this landscape. When you look at the artist's reconstruction of the interior of the hill fort, you'll notice it's packed with roundhouses. That's only one interpretation of the excavated evidence. A series of post holes did come up in many of the trenches that Freer and Cotton excavated, but they were digging in very small boxes, and so it's hard to get a real understanding of the overall picture of what was going on inside the hill fort. What we do know is that after a relatively short time, activity up here probably stopped. We don't know why the hill fort would have been abandoned, but one clue might be the fact that it gets very rainy, very cold, very misty up here, and perhaps it's not the place you wanted to live. Certainly it might have been used for stock enclosure, and indeed this site has been used for farming right up to present day. If you want to experience Ivinghoe Beacon for yourself, it is one of the more popular destinations in the Chilterns AONB. It marks the beginning, or the end, of the Ridgeway National Trail. You can leave Avebury Stone Circle in Wiltshire and arrive here at your destination at Ivinghoe Beacon, or of course, the other way around. Hundreds of thousands of people visit Ivinghoe Beacon every year, and you can easily see why. It's a beautiful site, steeped in heritage and with panoramic views. It's lovingly looked after by the staff and volunteers of the National Trust here at Ashridge Estate. The chalk geology is extremely vulnerable, and we can help them look after it by sticking to the paths that they lay out. If you want to know more about Ivinghoe Beacon or any of the Chiltern hill forts, you should visit the website at the Chilterns Conservation Board. There you will find detailed maps, more information, and a page for each hill fort.